Hey, my name is Kristian Noel Pedersen, and I just released my 12th original Christmas album, A Christian Kind of Christmas 12. It's available on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, and all of your major online streaming services. Today we're going to talk about how this album came together and listen to some songs.
This is All About the Song. Welcome to the 116th episode of All About the Song. I am your host, Michael McDonnell, and thank you for joining us. On the podcast today, we have Kristian Noel Pedersen, who is celebrating the release of his 12th original Christmas album. We have had Kristian on the podcast the last 3 years to go through and do an album breakdown of each episodes. We've been doing it since the dawn of this podcast. His first appearance was episode 7, and we're really excited to keep up to date with Kristian's musical efforts. I think it's a really amazing thing that he does every year, and I look forward to it. I play in the live band. We weren't able to obviously get together to do an annual Christmas show this year, so we were able to do some live stream recordings where we all played our parts at home, and we were featured in the Wavelength Christmas show or holiday show, and that was, you're seeing this on Tuesday, so that was on last Wednesday, and it was incredible. It's on YouTube, so you can check that out at Wavelength Music. And we also recorded a song from Kristian's new album for the Sounds Like Songs holiday show. We are doing on our YouTube channel a holiday show featuring artists that you've heard on this podcast, in particular artists that have recorded a video segment. So you'll see Christy Palace, Dawson Gamble, you'll see Whaley. We have some wonderful, we've got one from Dr. Jaw, which is really great. So I won't say any more. Be sure to check that out. It's going to come out December 23rd. That is Wednesday. That is tomorrow. So I hope you enjoy that. And now a quick word from our friends and sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Hailed, which is a coffee shop located at Yonge and Gerrard in downtown Toronto area. If you are a coffee drinker, you must try Hailed. They are ranked consistently among the top 10 coffee houses in Toronto. Visit the store and support local Toronto-based businesses. Be sure to place your order at www.hailed.ca. This episode is also brought to you by Flickly. Thank you, Richard Atkin, friend of the podcast. We really appreciate your support for the Canadian music scene. Rich is the founder and CEO of Flickly, a premier video animation studio, working with large brands and enterprises across the globe. Learn more about Rich and his work at Flickly by going to the website flickly.com, FLIKLI.com, and connect with Richard Atkin on LinkedIn. So here we are, episode 116 of All About the Song featuring Kristian Noel Pedersen. Kristian Noel Pedersen, congratulations on your 12th Christmas original music album. Your 13th, if we include the Hanson cover album of Snowed In you did 2 years ago. How does it feel to continue this tradition for another year?
I'm still so surprised that I have things to write about. There was a point where I thought, like, I'll cap it at 10. And then I got bored last year and I did it anyways, and it just keeps going. But yeah, no, it feels good. I think now I've figured out my career path, and that's being the guy that someone discovers in 30 years and writes a documentary about it. Like, that's what I want. I want like Hot Dogs fame.
You want hot dogs? I could see the CBC doing something about you, like a documentary series just discussing, Christmas, going home with you to North Bay, that kind of stuff. I think that it would be, I feel like if anyone at the CBC hears this, they should, grab a pen and paper and start jotting down notes.
Like in terms of hobbies, this is not too indifferent than the person who has like a really realistic model railroad set of a city. Like this is it's an all-encompassing thing that when you tell people about it, they go, "Really?" But yeah, happy to be doing it.
Well, this is our third time talking about the albums on this podcast. This is the first time we're doing it on video. Unfortunately, we are doing it over Zoom because COVID-19, we're in lockdown. It would have been nice to do this in a studio, and there's a lot of ideas. We are doing a Christmas special, which you're going to be a part of, on December 23rd, and we're looking forward to hopefully being able to do a studio holiday version in 2021, but we're excited to do it, via live stream. And if we're to be thankful in the holiday season for things, it has been fantastic to be able to use these types of mediums to, continue conversations like we normally do.
I think in a lot of ways, COVID has kind of made everyone a bit more productive within the means that they have. Like, I'm not sure if you've noticed this as well, but like, I feel like everyone I've talked to, it's kind of been like, well, I was planning on doing this eventually, so I might as well do it now. Like, it's kind of like forcing everyone just to like bust into action. And, it's looking differently because of it, but it's kind of cool. It's cool to see played out.
I think so too. And I was having a thought just this morning going for a walk that it's nice to know that I could continue doing this podcast and be on a vacation somewhere, or just it allows a lot of freedom, which is really nice. And I think that, especially with music stuff and the transportation of gear, the ability to send tracks and things online, which I'm sure I know you've used for this, this album in particular, but for it to become something that's more in the forefront, like not a side option, not a secondary act or a last means resort, but actually you could send backup vocals for a Christian Kind of Christmas 12 via a live stream and do it in your pajamas. And it's very efficient.
Absolutely. Yeah. If anything, it's so funny this year. The whole process has changed just a little bit, where usually I'll have a map out of people I need to bring in to do various parts, or a list of places I need to go to get people in whatever space they need to record in. And it certainly made life easier for me. And the only thing that's changed is now I have a folder of sharing files where I have different versions of, like, oh, the choir part for this song, I need to send a specific one to this person. So I have like 50 files that are just labeled slightly differently. But yeah, it's amazing just to see, if anything, it kind of opens up that border a little bit more for like who you can reach out to and who's willing to do stuff, because we're all equally bored.
Well, that's true, and leads to my next question, and it's a very obvious one. I'm sorry that I have to ask it, but what's it like recording a Christmas album in comparison to other years due to being in lockdown because of COVID-19?
I don't think it's changed the process a lot. And if I'm being completely honest, I wrote some of the lyrics for this before the full scope of what this was. Thematically, a lot of the stuff that I write is kind of, I try and ride this line of like staying positive around Christmas, regardless of how stressful it can be, and talking about winter or the lack of winter. And I feel like all of those things are still very relevant. If anything, it's like the concerns of what do we do when it gets colder eventually is probably more at the forefront. If anything, I just had to rewrite lyrics because early on, like I started writing lyrics in the fall. And in the fall, it really felt right to do a bunch of really COVID-centric lyrics. And I edited them mostly out. Robbie Williams released a Christmas song talking about Zoom, and it just sounded so bad that I was like, I need to take all of this out.
Yeah, you kind of want to maintain a bit of timelessness, which is why this season is so memorable, because you have songs that are on the radio, on top 40 radio, that were recorded in 1959, and they're still contemporary.
Yeah, and I guess Christmas music is a weird thing where like the genre is not really a style, it's like a feel.
Yes.
And I don't adhere to this. I'm so bad for this. And I think that's probably why some people don't mind listening to this album is like, I feel like Christmas songs are inherently like it's stuck in 50s and 60s rock somehow. Or like everything sounds like Mr. Sandman a little bit for some reason. And I try and avoid that a little bit already. But yeah, I think it's weird. Yeah, I've never really gone for timeless in a sense. Like I a couple years ago, I did a song about like the hydro outage, Toronto under ice and snow. And in a way, I kind of look at this as a time capsule for my own life. And if anyone listens to it, that's cool. But for the most part, my aim is to be like, oh yeah, here's where I was at in 2020.
So then how come take out all the COVID lyrics?
I think there's a difference between where I'm at in 2020 and do you know on Facebook where you get like, here's what happened 10 years ago today, and you go, why did I write that in public? Where I'll see these status updates and go, I was an idiot. And I wish I get like now I'm almost looking at this, knowing that like I don't really have to listen to these songs after I've done them, but I have friends that do and random people in Minnesota that listen, and I go, I don't want them to think this is what I'm all about. So I need to like kind of self-edit a little bit, and not too much. Like there's literally a line that went from like a very COVID Christmas, don't be late, to a very Merry Christmas, don't be late. And it's like, it doesn't change the spirit of the song. It just kind of changes the one word. Cause I feel like COVID is not a musical word and it sucks. You should never have it in a song.
Well, as is tradition with our breakdowns, we're going to go through the album song by song. One single is out right now. Everything's the same except it isn't. It's a really good song.
That is a COVID song.
That's okay. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but you know what though? I think that I know this song because we've performed it virtually, and I think that it teeters a line. It's not exactly so pandemic centric, but as we should begin at the beginning, song number 1, 12 Degrees in December.
Yeah, 10 Degrees in December. It's had like 3 different names. I wrote it in North Bay, just thinking like, I think going back to like songs about Christmas not being like they are in like snow globes, I guess. Just thinking, oh yeah, in Toronto, it's going to be muddy. It's going to be muddy in December, and I think things would be a lot easier. Probably, COVID would be easier if it just got cold out and forced everyone to stay in. But more specifically, I think Christmas would just be a lot nicer if it wasn't so, fall-like in December in Toronto. And it's a theme that kind of takes place a couple of times throughout, just like, oh yeah, maybe this season would be easier if it was cold out. So yeah, that's that.
Well, my big thing about it is the best part of Christmas is the snow and the angelicness of it. And it's unfortunate because as soon as Christmas hits, I'm over it. And if it hasn't even begun by January 22nd, I'm just kind of miserable with the weather.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it always helps that my family lives up north. So no matter what, I'll get up Christmas. I'll get up north and there will be snow because that's just a thing that happens north of Huntsville. But it's true in Toronto. Like if I'm here throughout the holiday season, by the time it's 2021, you're just like, well, I want it to be spring now. And yeah, not having any snow, like really it's only a viable thing for maybe 2 weeks, mid-December, unless you're a skier. Every year it snows less and less. Winter starts later and later. Just once, I'd love for the Christmas season to finally start in December. This year, we're finally in the clear, almost. Just once, let's hope that we get out unscathed. This year, let's end with something to write home about. This year is worthy of being saved.
Song 2, Christmas in the City.
Yeah, this I started writing last year at Christmas, and I think full transparency, the album's not done yet. So if you're listening to this, it's already come out. I kind of based this around this ornament that my mom has. It's Spock. It's like a Spock in a away ship, and when you press it on the bottom, it goes like "Happy Holidays" and "Merry Christmas," blah. And he makes like Spock noises. And anytime that people came over for Christmas, my mom would be like, "Oh, you got to check this thing out," and she'll like press this thing. And that's, yeah. So it just, it started with that, and it turned into a Strokes song. I'm not really sure how it happened, but I think once again, it's the lyrics kind of went from entirely being about this ornament to just the first two lines, and then it turns into just, what will Christmas in the city be like when it's not snowing? I feel like there will be a theme on this album. It's about snow. What does it even mean? Gets the people going. Why's the city so green in December? I just wish it was snowing. And everybody say Merry Christmas to me and to your family. I just hope that my friends are happy. And what'll it mean with no Christmas in the city? What does it mean to spend Christmas without family? Merry Christmas to me from inside my TV screen. We'll get by virtually for the time being. And I'm thinking, fuck this holiday, unless everything will be okay. Somewhere way up north, it's starting to precipitate. And if it finally snows in the city, this might feel less shitty. I can only hope there are kids up on Christmas Eve and thinking if we can only see, then we will believe. It's never been my time of year. The sun goes down and disappears. This town feels so old and gray. Christmas, Christmas, don't be late. When did this all get so hard? We're closing down the downtown bars. You only feel safe driving cars. A very cold Christmas, don't be late. Don't be late. What'll it mean with no Christmas in the city? What'll it mean to spend Christmas without family.
And song 3, All I Want on Christmas Day.
Yeah, this I'm not sure if I mentioned this before we started recording or not. This album was kind of built off of sketches that I had inside of Logic. And as soon as fall hit and it was very clear that we wouldn't be able to do a Christmas show, like last year's album, if any of you guys have heard it, it's very rock centric. And with that, there's maybe some keyboards, but really it's just guitar, bass, drums. And because we've been doing these annual shows and it's been so hard to kind of take these like lushly orchestrated, really frenetic Christmas songs and make them translate to a live show, I just said, well, we can't do it anyways, so let's make an impossible to play album. And that's what this song was. It's literally just 17 string parts, and there's like a drum and bass thing that's happening. It's everything possible at once. It's so over the top.
Isn't that fun though? Like, isn't it nice to... I felt that about music this year, where I would make concessions thinking, how would this happen live? Now I'm just thinking, I don't care. Let's put a tuba in or whatever it may be.
Yeah, totally. This song has 2 tubas.
That's awesome.
It's to the point where I have like, I have like synth bass and electric bass and tuba and a baritone. And like, they're all like orchestral samples. Because once again, it's kind of like, well, historically, I have had some horn player friends that I've gotten to do things. And with this, I just don't want to put extra pressure on people. So not thinking about what I have in the real world has really opened things up to just make the most batshit crazy music, which has been super satisfying.
Song is the Santa Convention. Oh, I'm sorry, we missed a song. We have our 4th song, A Story About Decorating the Tree.
I feel like you don't have to edit this because they're kind of one and the same.
Well, I really like both these songs. I have a penchant for hearing your dad sing, but we'll get to that in a second. So this is kind of like a lead up into it. This is like the cello for All of the Lights on My Dark Twisted Fantasy, basically.
Yeah, well, this the story about decorating the tree. It was just one song that my dad wrote split into 2 things. So he wrote a song last year called "The Santa Convention," and he sent it to me in like mid-November, early December, and at that point I kind of said like, it's a fun song. It does not fit with this album. Like the last year's was super just rock heavy. And to me, I heard this and thought, it sounds folky. It sounds like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I like that, but I can't just shove it in. It's not going to do it justice. But the big thing that I couldn't wrap my head around with it was he wrote the song with me in mind, I guess. Like he wrote a song about something that I did when I was a kid, written from my voice. And that was something that was really hard for me to kind of wrap my head around. I think, it's not uncommon to sing other people's songs, but I think there's an expectation that anything that your voice is on is yours. And I thought this will make a lot more sense if it's written from the standpoint of like him as a dad with this weird, dumb thing that his kid did, which was as a kid, my parents went to photography conventions. And when it came time to decorate the tree, I'd gone to a couple of conventions with them. And all I knew was a bunch of people that do the same thing meet at a hotel. So when we were decorating the tree, I took all of the Santas and put them in one corner of the tree. And I was like, yeah, it's the Santa Convention. They're meeting there. And it lasted like, well, it's still happening. I wanted to do it like 3 times, and then it's been continued by my parents who are like, we need to do it. It's tradition. It's just what it turned into. But yeah, the concession to like do this song was like, I like it, but I don't want to pretend that it's me. So I asked him to write an intro, which I love. And that's what A Story for Decorating the Tree was. It was him almost doing like the lead into Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Just the weird song story introduction saying, here's what starts here's the intro to the next song. But yeah, it's kind of like, I said to my kid to do this, and then he did this dumb thing. And then that is the story of the Santa convention. So yeah, it worked out really well. I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Not only did it turn out to be a great song, I gotta say, this is maybe one of the weirder conversations I've thought of father-son having on multiple levels. The songwriting authenticity on a Christmas song about Santa convention, the initial idea of a photography convention turning in the idea of putting your Santas together on a tree. These are multiple weird things that make such a beautiful story, and it's so interesting. And also to hear the song in the complex harmonies and the melody that your dad does, I was thinking kind of like, it was very almost, well, first off, I hear the Rudolph thing definitely with the intro, but also I was thinking Yellow Submarine, I was thinking Magical Mystery Tour, I was thinking how you and your father, Paul, put in such musicality and such, intense thinking, but also being really true to yourself in the holiday spirit that, you're taking this very seriously, and you really hear this in the song.
I think the thing that really elevated this song is I sent it, like I knew what I wanted it to sound like, and this was almost a song that I didn't play on at all. The final version, I play bass and some acoustic guitar, but for the most part, I'm hands off on it. And it's like I knew I wanted it to sound like this timeless, like the time capsule of a 50s Christmas song that didn't really exist. And I hope it came across. But I sent it to Rob Curry, I think of Bet Smith, of Curry's in Gravenhurst. We knew him from, he recorded the Henson Christmas album with us, but he is such a good kind of finger picking country guitarist, and he's really into like old ribbon mics and things like that. So I sent it to him and thought, if he gets what I'm going for, it's gonna be right up his alley, and he was into doing it, which I was really happy about.
Yeah, this solo is pretty incredible on the Santa convention.
Yeah, it's he sent it to me and he's like, I hope this isn't too over the top. And it's like, no, this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed.
Absolutely. Well, I was listening to it and going, wow, Paul Pedersen can really play that guitar, which I know he can, but I was thinking like, this is next level.
Yeah, I think the whole goal, and I hope my dad's not offended by this because I know he's going to watch this thing, but I think he wrote it. To me, I really heard Peter, Paul, and Mary. Like my dad's like a really good, like finger picking guitarist, and because I don't want to say he's trained as a bassist, but for years he's played bass in bands, and the way that he writes guitar parts is like this really interesting. Like he'll kind of bridge chords from chord to chord, and I think it's always really cool. But it's not what I saw with this, so it was fun to just take. What I did to record it is in the fall when I was up there for a week or so, I just kind of laid the chords out in Logic and was like, okay, now we're going to sing the melody to this, and then I'm going to replace everything. So he hasn't even heard the final version yet, and I hope he likes it.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm sure that he will. And also to Paul, as a bass player who writes songs on an acoustic guitar, I totally know exactly what you were talking about. There's a rhythm that you can't let go of, or a responsibility as a bass player. When you're playing the guitar, you're like, no, I still got to be responsible in my playing and make sure we're holding the rhythm while we go for it.
For sure. Yeah, he'll have chords, but it's in a lot of ways, the way that he writes things is, okay, here's an interesting chord. Now, how can I move it to the next one? So you'll kind of hear him do like, the E string moves.
Yeah, I know that very well.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm sure it's a very common thing with bass players.
So the 6th track, Christmas Music in a Mansion, the Night Before Christmas. This is a very classic Kristian Noel Pedersen synth ballad, I'd say. Yeah. That would be very specific to a Kristian Noel Pedersen Christmas album over anyone else.
It's a sound that there's always like one or two of these on every album, and I'm convinced that this is what Christmas music should sound like. Like that's kind of my little passion project, is making these like really wintry, creepy things where it kind of sounds like an empty street where you're just crunching with your feet, walking down like crunchy snow is like what these are supposed to sound like. But I think what they wind up sounding like is like a creepy haunted mansion. Um, this one came, I think, once again. Every year there's a night before Christmas. This is the first year that it's not called that specifically. It's Christmas music in a mansion. I just liked it was an Instagram caption that a piano player that I have on Instagram had last year. I think he just had like a picture of a piano in a big living room, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. Christmas music in a mansion. And when I was writing the night before Christmas, it just sounded solo piano enough that I just thought, oh, I'm going to go for it. So I don't know if he'll hear this. Hopefully he does.
I think that what you described with this song, and it is that feeling of walking home, hearing the crunch of the snow. I have very fond memories of that because growing up, the thing that we would do a lot on Christmas is go for walks after opening gifts, or when we got older, like going to the bar on December 22nd. I have a lot of friends with birthdays around Christmas.
Mm-hmm,
so there was just kind of like the going to the neighborhood pub or going to your best friend's house and just, watching a movie, everyone's winding down, being in sweatpants, like that, and that feeling of you're leaving a party, going home, and that isolated feeling where you feel really good because everyone is relaxed. Everyone knows Christmas is here, but there's that walking and seeing the streetlights encrusted with ice and the way that the light reflects off of it and just that silent, stunning beauty. And I think it's really cool you capture it with songs like this.
I think something that I've never really quite verbalized is if you listen through, I guess, the last 12 albums now, or at very least, like, let's say from like album 4 to 12, I really landed on an overall emotional arc sonically, and I'm not sure if anyone's really ever picked up on it, but it always starts with like a hustle and bustle song. It's like the you have to go get gifts, it's hectic, like that's always early in the album, and then like by 3/4 of the way through it's kind of it's Christmas Eve, no one's outside, and then the big ending, it's Christmas Day, everyone's really busy. Like it almost does like busy, calm, busy. It's like a smile. That's usually where I work towards, and that's kind of where this one comes in on this album.
And we have our first single at track 7, Everything's the Same Except It Isn't.
Yeah, this one, every year this happens, I think the whole album's mapped out, and then something comes to me very quickly. And usually the song that I like the most is the one that I wrote the last. This one I wrote like a month ago, talking to my friend Rob. He was contemplating moving in the fall, and kind of had to come to terms with the idea of, do I want moving uptown would mean less interaction with people, which right now is something that I think we all kind of want. But doing that would mean he's no longer a downtown guy. So that kind of just turned into this, or at least that was kind of like the what pushed this song over the edge. But otherwise, yeah, I just really wanted to write a song knowing that there'd be a lot of like really bummer COVID Christmas songs coming out. I think, if anyone's doing kind of a one-off Christmas single, they're all really like, we don't get to see family, it's not very fun. And I wanted to kind of write the opposite, like kind of the glass half full, where it's like, yeah, it's you might not get to see family, but it'll still be Christmas, was kind of the logic with this.
same this year with the exception that it isn't. I can hardly wait for Christmas knowing that it will be different. We can still see families gathering round different trees. Last week, my good friend said it's the ending of an era. Everybody's left downtown and I don't seem to care. But winter is calling, the leaves are falling. Still I don't have a plan on how to see my parents. But yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll still find Christmas cheer, even if it's not the same as last year. Everything will be alright on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. Everything will be alright on Christmas Day. It's just a little different. Everything will be alright on Christmas Day. It's just a little different. Everything will be alright on Christmas Day. It's just a little different. Everything will be alright on Christmas Day. It's just a little different. Everything will be alright on Christmas Day. It's just a little different. Everything will be alright on Christmas Day. It's just a little different. Everything will be alright on Christmas Day. It's just a little different. Still see family. At least I hope eventually.
And at number 8, we have We'll Get By featuring Matthew Winkler, who has been on this podcast a couple times too.
Friend of the show, Matthew Winkler. Yeah. Yeah. This too, I think this is becoming the trend more and more, is like this Christmas album gets built up with songs that I kind of start when I'm just making music for fun. This song started with an arpeggio that continues through the whole song, and I just thought it sounded so cool. It's a preset on one of the synths that I have here, this one, and I just kind of kept building it up. Once I kind of landed on this idea of screw it, let's add a bunch of orchestral sounds. That's where this thing all took shape, and it only started. Matt was only featured as of maybe 4 days ago. Like the day before I put the track listing up, I was talking to him and he said, one of these days I want to write a Christmas dance song with you. And I was like, well, I have a song with one verse that needs 2 verses. I'll send it to you right now. And it came together really quickly. When I wrote it, the verse that stayed in for me was literally just, I'm sure you do this as well when you're writing songs. Do you ever just like sing random things with like a melody that comes to mind?
Yeah, I try not to because it's hard to replace actual words.
Welcome to my world with this song. It literally, and that's why like the lyrics, it's like there's like 2 lines. It's like, it's fine, we'll get by, and it just repeats itself because I just sung it and was like, that sounds kind of cool. I'm into it. And I sent it to Matt, and he literally did the same thing. He just listened to it and made up words. And yeah, I guess it's technically freestyle. It worked out really well. I'm happy with it.
Well, I once heard in a John Lennon interview that was animated called The Walrus, I think it was a Oscar-nominated documentary, that John Lennon talked about the fact that sometimes you listen back to your lyrics 10 years from when you originally wrote them and you hear what the message is. So perhaps you'll be writing a Christian Kind of Christmas 20 and stumble on these songs and, in particular, we'll get by and understand where you guys were at that time.
Maybe. Yeah, it's definitely a song. It's probably my most like I don't say visceral, like immediate, just in the sense of like, I think usually when I'm writing songs, I really don't want it to come across as like feely. I'm much more a fan of like describing literal snow things, and this is the first song that I can think of that's literally like, here's where I'm at. But I think for the sparse kind of weird electronic thing, it worked out pretty well.
And to round it off, the 9th song on A Christian Kind of Christmas 12 is A House, a Home featuring Rob Duffy.
Yeah. The Rob Duffy song it's a key ingredient in these albums. Rob is my favorite melody writer. I probably mentioned it the other 2 times we've done this. He's been learning a lot this year about putting music together in GarageBand, which is very much, probably what a lot of people are doing right now. And with that, he's kind of wrapping his head around chord progressions. But for a long time, he sang in his own band, which you guys would have played with him back in the day, The Avenue. But he was never really like writing songs. He just kind of wrote melodies to go with someone else's, like with our friend Justin's chord progressions. And I've always liked the way that he approaches melodies. This instrumental, I basically sent him an instrumental that was originally at the end of track 3, Christmas in the City, where at the end of it, I wanted it to go into a weird electronic thing, just to be mindful of what I knew was coming later in the album, just to like I needed synth early to not feel so out of place later in terms of track sequencing. It didn't really fit there, but I really was just stuck on this like 4-chord chord progression. So I just sent it to him and said, please just invent a melody and we'll see if we can put something together. And listening to it, he just kind of came up with this idea, once again, mentioning that he moved. And he knew that, I talked about him moving earlier in the album. So he started thinking, well, I want to get a Christmas tree. And Christmas trees to me mean that you're at a home permanently. So this is the first time getting Christmas tree in 4 years, and I want to do a song about that. So we just called each other up and played it on loop over the phone and tried to figure it out. So it came together really well.
It's nice to have a group of people, and I'm privileged to be included of this, but it's also nice that you do this program you go through this process every single year, and you're bringing people back to do multiple albums. Your dad, Paul Pedersen, Rob Duffy has been featured on his song for the last 2 or 3 albums. You have Justin Bobian that's been featured on multiple albums. Matthew Winkler and myself, I've done something on the last 3 albums, and it's so nice to do every year. For me, I love doing it because it's a benchmark for, where this podcast is, where I am at recording, how efficient I can be. Also, knowing that it's coming up is always just something, it's part of my, Christmas. It gets me into the Christmas spirit is the best way I can say it.
Glad to hear that. I always worry that it's a big hassle for everyone.
Well, to be quite honest, it's not. It's something that's nice to do, and it's always exciting. And the messages that I get from friends and stuff asking if these records are on vinyl, I think that there's a really interesting thing to this. And I think that also, since you've been a very individualist as to how you've gone about a Christmas album, i.e. not a lot of jingle bells, not a lot of classic 60s, 50s style. I know you have jingle bells right now.
I have like the granddaddy of jingle bells.
But I think that it's really cool that with your accumulated body of work, you've really created a musical universe that you continue to add to every year. And it's a real admirable thing to stick with it.
I appreciate that. It almost sounds like it's really great that you keep doing this insane thing. But no, I totally, it's been nice. I think after the first single came out, I had a couple people kind of say, "Oh, it's really cool that you put in the bridge." I took a melody and lyric from a song from I think the 10th album, "Everything Will Be All Right on Christmas Day," and it's a melody that Rob Duffy usually sings, but in this case, yeah, it's like, oh, it's great to have that in there. It's almost like a little Easter egg where it doesn't have to. I personally really like referring to old music, and I think in the same way that you mentioned, there's kind of reoccurring cast and characters that take part in this. I kind of like this idea that I realize that these songs will never really become canon for most people's Christmas, but I almost like the idea of like self-mythologizing it a little bit, where putting little snippets from old Christmas songs, bringing back people that take part in it, it almost kind of makes everything immediately feel a bit more familiar in a way that Christmas songs inevitably always do.
So now, to the listening and the viewing audience, where can they find your most recent release that will be out at the time that this podcast is released and all other albums?
Yeah, so for the completionist, everything is available on Bandcamp. I believe it's achristiankindofchristmas.bandcamp.com. Worth noting, my name is spelled with K and no H, so it's not in the religious sense, but that's what the pun is. Otherwise, if you search my name, Kristian Noel Pedersen, on Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, whatever other one you might listen to, they're all there. All of the originals are there. It's really expensive to put covers up on Spotify.
That's amazing. Thank you, Kristian, for doing this. I'm glad that we are continuing our tradition. What is next for you?
I haven't verbalized this out loud yet, but I've been writing songs for a non-Christmas album. It'll be under the name Heritage Festival. That'll, look for that next summer, hopefully. Aside from that, I don't know. I'll be back next year. Kristian Kind of Christmas 13.
I'd like to thank Kristian for being on the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or a suggestion for a guest you'd like to hear on an episode, send us an email, allaboutthesongpodcast@gmail.com. For past episodes, check out www.allaboutthesongpodcast.com. We are on YouTube. If you are watching us, you're already here. Please be sure to subscribe, hit the notification button, leave a comment. And if you are listening to the podcast or you're watching and you'd like to listen to other episodes, we are at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, we are there. And wherever it is you listen or watch, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. So for Kristian Noel Pedersen, I'm Michael Mactinell. Be sure to check out our holiday episode tomorrow, December 23rd, featuring a wild assortment of cast from past episodes performing holiday songs. We look forward to seeing you then.